The Ratio Index Analysis module gives users the ability to track the overall financial health of their operations over a selected period of time. It uses a variety of industry standard ratios to do this. There's no additional setup required within Centerpoint to utilize the Centerpoint Ratios module. The data is pulled from account categories already assigned to accounts in the software. It does, however, depend on the accurate use of the account categories in Centerpoint and good financial records. An example of an inaccurate use of the account categories would be if you put an account that was a current asset in a category that was meant for long-term assets. Okay, then any ratios that used current assets in their measurement would be incorrect. So you want to make sure that you're using the account categories properly. And as we look at this ratio index analysis module, we'll be able to drill down on each of the ratios to see if it's using or what accounts that it's actually using in its measurement. Okay, to get into ratio index analysis, once it's installed, you'll go to Reporting Tools and you'll go to Ratios. Now, if you have never been into Ratio Index Analysis module, the first time in, it'll pop up a screen asking you what company or companies you want to use and what date range and so on. Since I've been in before in this database, it's not bringing that up, but I can get to that screen to change the information by clicking on the first icon on the toolbar. And that will allow me to choose which company or companies I want to include in my analysis, what date range I want to include. Now, the database that I'm working with only has one year of data in it. And typically when you're using ratios, you're probably looking at your data over a longer period of time. So it might be some time before you get some really good analysis, but it's really never too early to start measuring the financial health of your business. So you can use this at any time. Now, the frequency, when I chart this information, the frequency that I'm going to be looking at it in is on a monthly basis. Now, it wouldn't make sense for me to use annual because I'd only have 1 point on my chart if I've only got 1 year. So since I'm using only a year, I'm going to choose monthly, but your options are monthly, quarterly, and annually. You have two different sets of ratios that you can toggle between. You can toggle between the Ferguson System Indicators and the Farm Financial Standards Council ratios. I'll show you how to do that in a minute, but if you are using the Farm Financial Standards Council ratios, then there is another tab where you can toggle between any ratios that use your balance sheet information as to whether or not they're using market value information or book value information. Okay, so you can select that for your analysis. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And up at where it says Farm Financial Standards Council, here is where you would click on the down arrow and switch back and forth between the Ferguson System Indicators and the Farm Financial Standards Council in measurements. As you select either one of those, it'll bring up a list of the different ratios or performance measures that you can look at. They might be broken down into different sections that you need to open up. So for example, I can open up the recommended financial ratios, and then that's broken down into a couple different sections. And if I open up this liquidity section, I can see the different ratios in that section. And if I highlight that ratio, it will then go ahead and chart it on the chart to the right. Now, what kind of chart you're looking at is going to depend on what you select on the toolbar up at the top, and it'll default back to the last one that you selected each time. So it starts out with this line chart, and I have options on the line chart. So on that second icon on the toolbar, I can choose the different kind of line chart I want. So for example, I could change to a spline, which is more of a curvy line, or I could go back to the standard line. You can change it to a pie chart if you wanted. So I could choose a different kind of pie chart. Pie chart is probably not the best particular type of chart for this particular ratio. So that might not be the one that I want to select. I can choose a bar chart, or I could even choose an area chart. So you could choose the different types of charts that you want to look at this particular ratio using. Now the x-axis on the bottom is showing me, I said to use monthly frequency, so it's showing me my 12 months starting from January through December. If I want to reverse the order of those, then there is an icon here that says reverse x-axis, and if I click on that, it changes it to December through January order. I can also toggle it back to the original order. If I don't want to look at the ratio in a chart format, I can look at it in a table format by going to the table. Over to the right-hand side, there's two tabs. There's chart and table. And if I flip to the table, it'll show me the actual calculation of that particular ratio. Now, if I want to see the different components that make up that ratio, I could click on the plus sign next to current ratio, and I can see that it's using current assets and current liabilities. So I could drill down further and see what the value of the current assets that it's using is. And if I want to look at what categories are being included, I can open that up further. Now, I might have more current asset categories in Centerpoint than what you're seeing here. What it's showing are only the ones that I have that it's using. Okay, so those are the ones that are being used in this particular database. Okay, so and let me go back to the chart. So I'm going to go ahead and go back up to the top to current ratio and go back over to the chart. At the bottom of the chart, there is a little thing that says formula description. It's a little button. And if I click on that, it'll bring up a description of what that ratio is actually looking at. So this is the current ratio, which is looking at if this particular organization were liquidated. It's looking at the ability of the current farm assets to cover the current farm liabilities. And it also tells us that the higher the number, the better the better, healthier organization is in. Okay, I'm going to close that again. If you want to print out this information, you can go to the print option and you can print out the chart or the table. You can take and export the information by clicking on the down arrow there. You can select to export in a PDF, an HTML, an Excel, or an image file. And then last, when you first come into Centerpoint, many of you are looking at a dashboard unless you've turned it off. I'm going to open up my dashboard by going to Reporting Tools and Dashboard. And that came up on a different screen on my computer. So I'm going to just drag that over. Actually, I wound up collapsing it. So let me go ahead and drag it over. And you can see right now, I don't currently have any of these ratios on my dashboard. So if I wanted to add a ratio to my dashboard, I'm going to close my dashboard for a second. All I have to do is highlight the ratio, and then the far right icon on the toolbar for the ratios is going to allow me to add it to the dashboard. So if I click on that, it adds it to the dashboard. And if I bring back up that dashboard and bring it back over to this screen, you'll see that it now has the current ratio on it. And I can toggle back and forth between the chart and the table, looking at it on the dashboard. I'm going to close that. The process is the same no matter what ratio you're looking at, so I'm not going to go through all of the individual ratios, but the process will be the same to pull up the ratio, to drill down on the data, so you can explore the different ratios that are available within Centerpoint.